Welcome to Dwelling Disasters. I do not remember what episode we're on. Maybe 12, something like that, 12, 13. But super excited to be here today. We have some important updates from big NAR legislation we're going to talk about back with Justin Trobec here. And we are going to talk about, first of all, Dwelling Disasters, back to the real drama of real estate. And Justin is here to talk to us about a real drama story in his life and his career, and we appreciate you being here. Justin, welcome to Dwelling Disasters. Tell us about your horror story you wanted to talk about today. What's the scenario?
Well, thanks for having me, Shawn. I'm excited to be here. I think that the overall theme of this story is going to be really talking about how important it is to really cut your losses with some particular clients. I have one particular horror story that you've heard this little bits of this from time to time. I don't know how much.
Remember our rules. No names.
No names. Yep. I'm not intending
protecting
on
the innocent.
Not gonna bring up any names. Not gonna bring up any names at all because don't need anything coming back on me. But no, this particular client, I've done quite a few deals with this particular client, and I actually was introduced to them by one of my lender partners that I've known for many years. I've done quite a few deals with him. He's a really fantastic lender. This particular client actually has never used him as a lender. They just met at some sort of networking event, and she was looking for somebody who could help her find some investment properties years and years ago. Ended up helping her buy an investment property really close to one of the properties that I own, actually, one of my rental units in Denver in the, what neighborhood is that? That's Virginia Village. But that was years and years ago. I've probably done, I don't remember even how many deals I've done with her since then. She has given me a deal from here to there, like representing a buyer on some of her properties that she's been selling. But the kind of overall theme with this particular person is they just were rather abusive in the way that they treated me, treated other people, and I had just decided it wasn't worth the headache and heartache and like mental anguish that she like put me and my partners, whether it be lender partners or just title companies through. She was just the kind of person that was incapable of having any sort of decent, respectable conversation. So the straw that kind of broke the camel's back with this particular client is I found her an off-market deal.
This is like transaction 5, right?
Yeah, I think this is probably around transaction number 5. So I found her an off-market deal. So she does a bunch of different flips. She's done flips for many years, and the product that she puts out is very nice. She does a high-quality renovation. She has some decent contractors who also have said some not very nice things about her over the years when I've had some conversations with them. But when I found her this off-market deal. It's in my neighborhood. I'm very familiar with my neighborhood. I have lived there for 16 years now, and the agent that was representing this house, she actually brought it to me initially because she knew that I was kind of looking for another home in our neighborhood that is in what's considered the Leawood Estates. So Leawood Estates is a separate section of Leawood, which is all semi-custom homes. They're a little bit larger lots. It's really tucked back away in the neighborhood, and it's there's no like thoroughfare or anything, so it's really quiet, beautiful. And I actually almost bought the house right next door to this subject property like a year prior. And that home ended up selling for like $950,000. It was great. We really wanted a pool at the time, and it had a pool. It had tons of square footage. It was needed a full gut job renovation, though. I mean, everything from scraping the ceilings to new kitchens, new bathrooms. All 5 bathrooms needed full renovation. But it was a beautiful home. It ended up selling for like $950,000, which at the time was the most expensive sale in our entire neighborhood. And Molly and I just decided it wasn't for us at the time.
No names.
Oh, my wife and I, her name's Molly, decided to pass on that one at the time. Molly is not the subject of this.
I know.
So the house next door popped up, and the listing agent, who I've had a relationship with for quite some time, we've done a few deals together, and she brought it to me, and didn't really want to take it to market. It just worked out better for her sellers to not take it to market because they were. It was an estate sale situation. House needed full renovation, but all the systems were in great shape. Beautiful house, back to a open space stream with a walking path, and a really, really nice house that just needed a lot of cosmetic stuff. And but the major draw on this house for me, when I was actually considering it, was it has a detached 3-car garage, and it has an attached 2-car garage. So, and this detached 3-car garage was beautiful, like fully finished, heated, insulated, very, very nice. And with where it was situated, the house had great views and everything. So I took it to my client because she was in a position where she needed to do a 1031 exchange. She'd swapped out of a bunch of properties from time to time, and was really needing to close on something very, very quickly in order to fulfill a 1031 exchange. And this place popped up, and I thought it really fit her needs. And I ran some comps, and when I ran the comps, it was difficult to comp out because of the extra 3-car garage, because that adds so much value, especially in some of the neighborhoods in Littleton where there is not an HOA, and the zoning is conducive to being able to do things like a 3-car garage. It's just kind of rare because, we're surrounded by Columbine Knolls, which you are pretty limited in what you can and cannot do with the HOA there. We're surrounded by, Grant Ranch, where there is a very restrictive HOA, but, beautiful communities. But this house ended up, we closed it for like $800,000. I told her that I thought she could get 1.2, which would be the highest sale in our neighborhood. But because of that,
after remodel.
Yeah. So the ARV was looking like she could get 1.2. So she ended up buying the place. Everything was cool, copacetic, all that. And
the big thing with this client is that they don't use you on the sales side. They only use you on the buy side.
They do not. Yeah, they only use me on the sale on the buy side. They are a licensed real estate agent that sells their own stuff. But uses me to find stuff for them. And this, so like she let it sit vacant for probably like 3-4 months before she started the renovation. I think she had other stuff that needed to happen. There was other projects and her crew and all that stuff. So she just let it sit vacant for a while. And then, basically, it started almost immediately after she bought the place. She started getting like other agents with bugs in her ear about, well, I don't really think this house is worth what you paid for it. And there's no way you're going to make any money on this. And there's no way you're going to be able to get that 1.2 number for it. And it being in Leawood, the max you can get is like $800 for a house in that neighborhood, which I showed her the house next door, which was similar size, which sold for $950 and needed a full renovation. And that didn't have the 5 cars worth of garage space. And overall, it was a good comp to show that the value was there even pre-renovation.
Right. Because she bought for $800.
$800, yeah. So
didn't have a pool, right?
No, the one that I sold her did not have a pool, but pools don't really add any value. As you know, Denver Metro, if we're in Phoenix, that's a whole different story, but Denver Metro, people, if you have a pool, you're probably immediately eliminating 60% of your buyers
Yeah,
at least.
it's a pain for most people to just deal with.
It is, yeah. So this home, she started getting all these people telling her like, "Oh, you're never gonna make any money on that. It's this, that, and the other." And then she had other agents that were telling her, "Well, there's no such thing as Leawood Estates." Well, technically speaking, there is nowhere in the title work that it says Leawood Estates.
There's no neighborhood or like name Leawood, like technical neighborhood called Leawood Estates.
Yeah, so there's like title work. You're not going to find the name Leawood Estates. You're not going to find, but living in the neighborhood forever, the listing agents, everyone that lives in Leawood knows what Leawood Estates is. And it is this particular pocket that is all semi-custom, and they're all much more desirable homes than the rest of Leawood. So she started, harassing me about this whole Leawood Estates thing. And so I told her, I was like, I sent her multiple information. What's your deal?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. I can hear me.
Right there. There you go. Every time you turn, I can't hear you.
Fair enough. I will not turn.
No, you can turn.
Maybe I just need to tighten this stuff up. So so then, I sent her comps again and told her, here's the properties of similar size within, a mile and a half. I don't usually like to go out that far, but within like a mile and a half, this based on square footage, based on having the extra 3-car garage. That extra 3-car garage was probably easy $150,000 in value, if not more.
Because it was a separate. It was a second garage.
Yes, right? It was a second detached 3-car garage with like a full. There is going to be somewhat of a specific buyer for that. Somebody that's a big hobbyist, or it was set up from the previous owners to be somewhat of a woodworking shop. They had like a, dust collection system and all sorts of tools and stuff that they got out of there before selling. And so a little bit of time went on, and, again, she's in my ear. I sent her more comps again, and kind of let her know, like, this is the deal. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, I know this neighborhood. I know Littleton very well, and you're going to do well in this home. And so then I ended up going on vacation. So I went to Europe with my family, took my whole family to Europe for like almost 3 weeks. And I let her know I was going to be gone. She knew I was on vacation. And then she starts blowing up my phone while I'm on vacation. So it's probably a mistake, but I answered the phone once. Again, she's griping at me about the non-existent Leawood Estates, and she had talked to this other agent that works in her office that's like, there's no such thing as Leawood Estates, and Leawood doesn't, you're never going to get that money, and I can't believe you paid that much for this house. So I was like, okay, well, Leawood Estates is guaranteed a thing. And I sent her, I think probably 6 different listings that all were in Leawood Estates that had sold over the previous 2 years, which the first line, all of them said, beautiful Leawood Estates home. Mm-hmm. All of them referred to Leawood Estates, and it was clear as day, and she still argued with me. And then,
was she just like upset that she felt like that you took advantage of her or something like that?
Yeah, she thought that I had sold her a Leawood home, just a standard basic Leawood home, but that wasn't the case. Yeah. It was, and walking through the home, I've been in every model of home that's in like regular Leawood. It is drastically different. Yeah. It is open spaces, tall ceilings. It was like a very semi-custom tri-level that was not at all the standard of tri-levels that you'd really seen anywhere.
Yeah.
And so when so then I sent her all that information, and she continued to call me. Like, I responded to one more text message. I said, I am on vacation. We have discussed this to no end. I'm on vacation with my family. I deserve my time off, and like this isn't gonna work for me.
Especially
anymore.
because you aren't the agent.
No,
Yeah.
she had no intention of having me sell the property.
Right.
I helped her acquire the property, and I always like want to support my clients to no end. When it comes to anything that comes up, like I have a plethora of resources that I can direct people to. I'm always helping with, providing any sort of documentation, any sort of information about the home going forward, and I'm always willing to do that. And I do continue to work while I am on vacation.
Yep.
We never really get a true rest.
It's the great thing about being a real estate agent is you're never really working, and the bad part is you're never really not working. You really can't. It's really easy to take time off, and it's really hard to be not working at all.
Yeah, for sure. So, fortunately, I have a plan that gives me, worldwide data and all that stuff. But I had helped her to every measure that I could.
Yeah.
We're at a point where there's no additional information. There's no additional things that she needed. She just wanted to continue to gripe and complain and like bitch at me.
Yeah, tell you that you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which was like really frustrating. And in the span of 3 days, I think we were in Paris at the time, and in the span of like 3 days, I think it was like 3 phone calls, like 8 text messages, like multiple emails, and I'm like, and I had provided her everything I could possibly provide her. So it just was that it was a tipping point, and I was just done. I was done. And the thing is, like, she has made many very like insulting comments, like directly to me. And I mean, it was time to cut ties. So, little bit of time goes on. It's in my neighborhood, so I kind of tend to always pay attention to what's going on in my neighborhood with different renovations, different projects in the neighborhood. So I had kind of noticed that there was active work going on when I got back, and there was a lot of renovation that was happening, you could see. And she ended up listing the property like a couple months later at 1 point. I think she ended up listing at 1.3, which I told her was 1.2 was it. Like 1.2 was the max. Like if you do an impeccable job on this remodel, which I've seen her work, she does really nice work. 1.2 was it. And she ended up not taking my advice and trying to go higher, even though everyone else told her she was never going to get anywhere close to
Right.
So
Everyone else
whatever.
told her 950, and
yeah. Well, then she it's been a little while, so it might not have been 1.2, 1.3. It might have been like 1.25. Either way, she ended up dropping the price, I think, to 1.2, and then it went under contract at 1.2, like right away. Weird.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I know what I'm doing or something.
Right.
So then, but it fell out of contract, I think, because she refused to replace a roof, which, then 2 weeks later, there's roofers putting on a brand new roof. And then it ended up going under contract again. And this is
composite or stone?
No, it was just
Composite. Asphalt.
Just asphalt. Yeah. I think it was like a class 4, like it's an architectural class 4 shingle. So it was a nice roof that was put on, but it's not like anything fancy. It wasn't stone coated steel or like a tile roof or anything like that. But then it did end up going back under contract pretty shortly after. And during this time, this is right when interest rates started climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. And that was one thing I didn't see coming as much. I mean, we both saw them starting to tick up, but seeing them go as high as they started to go, I had like this knot in my stomach. Like, I told this person 1.2, like I still feel like compelled and responsible for that. Well, it did end up closing at like 1.165. So she did very well on the property.
Yeah.
But it just really made me come to a realization that I don't need to work with everybody. I get along with everybody pretty well. I am a reasonably, outgoing person that can deal with all sorts of personalities, but she really kind of became somewhat like abusive, like
Yeah.
with the way that she expected me to do all these things for her that were far, far, far beyond my scope and my responsibilities. And, on multiple occasions, I helped her get different quitclaim deeds taken care of and things that really, like, she has different contacts that could be doing this for her.
Right.
And
Especially since she's a real estate agent. Like, she
Yes.
knows how to do it.
Yeah, and so I connected her with people that did a lot of stuff for her for no money, and really, I provided her a ton of value, and after the deal was under contract, I mean, she's asking for a referral fee too. Like, she wants me to cut my commission essentially, so that she can pocket more money, and I very begrudgingly finally said, fine, you know what, whatever, fine, here's your money, here's your referral fee, this is it, we're not doing business again. So she has tried to reach out to me several times since, and I just I refuse to put up with it anymore. And that is a very rare situation for me, because I mean, there's a lot of people that can have difficult situations, which or different people that interject themselves into transactions. There can be someone that might be a bit of a know-it-all, and you just let it go. You coach them through, and you guide them through the process to the best of your ability, and make sure that you are always looking out for the client's best interest. But when the client is treating you like crap, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sometimes just best to cut ties.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it's crazy how much that, like real estate in general is stressful already. Like, people don't really realize, I don't think, how stressful it is to be a real estate agent, because, like, we play calm and cool. We need to be the step down transformer. We're kind of taking a lot of the blows, but in reality, we are helping people to negotiate hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of transactions. And that's a lot of stress that they're like, hey, I'm responsible for literally millions of dollars in some cases. And having to be the person that's essentially saying, like, don't worry, I got it, is hard and it's stressful. So add that on top of clients that are not respectful or are actively trying to take advantage of the situation. I had clients that it literally took me the amount of verbal abuse I took from this client. And I tried to, and people are like, well, then why don't you just leave? Like, I tried to leave the relationship and said, like, hey, like, this is done. Their attorney stepped in and said, every dollar this sells for less than what we originally said we're going to do, like, we will sue you for that if you try to leave this transaction. But, like,
how'd that pan out?
I didn't leave. So, I mean, he told me directly, daily, how terrible I was at being a real estate agent, like, screamed at me, telling me how terrible I was. So I said, great, you're free to go work with anybody else. And then I got a letter that said, if you leave this, you're going to detrimentally affect the sale of this property. So it's like, you're terrible, but if you leave, it's going to hurt the sale of this transaction.
Yeah.
So we did get the transaction closed after he, like, went behind my back, negotiated directly with the buyer to do this insane deal where it sold for exactly what the contract was going to be for, but he did it as a huge portion of the sale was to purchase was a separate bill of sale for, like, furniture and stuff. There was probably $10,000 worth of furniture and random nonsense that he sold, but he sold it for like $250,000 in order to lower the price of the home to pay lower commissions to me
my
and the buyer's agent. And the buyer's agent called me. She's like, "Do you know what's going on?" I'm like, "Yes, I know what he's doing." She's like, "Are you okay with this?" I'm like, "Honestly, I like whatever." I'm like, I'm not going to fight this. I'm like, so if you wanna, let me know if you wanna fight this. She's like, "No, like I don't wanna deal with it." She's like, "I can just, my buyer's fine compensating me separately. So if you're okay with it, like I'll deal with it separately. Fine." Get a call from the county, like, "Hey, what the hell happened here? Why did this house sell for so little?" And I'm like,
you got to talk.
You
to
talk to
seller,
him.
Yeah,
I was not a part of this scenario. You like that was negotiated without me.
Yeah.
But it literally took, and then after this worst transaction ever, like 6 months later, he called me and was like, "Hey, I want you to represent me on another state." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Like, you called me yelling at me daily, and now you want me to sell another house? Like, you've got to be kidding me."
Well, and that's so difficult too, because like we are held to a standard and have to look out for the best interest, and we can't be bad actors. We can't do things in bad faith. Like, we have to represent our clients in the highest level and respectfully and like in their best interests. So it's difficult when they come back and say, "Oh, well, even though we had this negotiated terms, like I want to pay you less money."
Yeah.
And there's that kind of will segue into our later topic, but like we work very hard for the money that we do make, and she wouldn't have had that deal if I hadn't had a relationship with that agent that brought it to me. And
the money isn't.
She made a lot of money on this deal,
and the money that are being paid to us isn't necessarily. Your relationship is why she even had access to that deal. Mm-hmm. That is what she's paying for, is your relationship. Yeah. And so, like Vanessa at our sales meeting, another agent in our office had a really good point, which is that I don't know if you were. Yeah, you were part of a group that sometimes when we go out and look with a buyer, it's one house, we make one offer, it's one contract, and the commission paid isn't necessarily commensurate with the amount of work done. But sometimes it
could be 2.5, 3 years,
3, 4, 5 years showing 100 houses, and the commission is like not even close to like if you add that up hourly, it's like working at McDonald's or something like that. So it all kind of balances out, and that's what I like to tell people is like, yeah, on this one, absolutely, like it didn't quite, like, I'll be honest, it didn't quite balance out. But I'm sorry for you in this scenario, but the reason why I don't discount on those is because when I have those that are like 5 years of working with somebody, and it's house after house after house, or it's we had to list and take off, and I had to sit with carrying costs on stuff. Those I don't charge. I don't go back and charge more on those either. So and nor can I. Mm-hmm. So it all, in the end, it balances out, right?
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, like, you and I both work with clients for a very long period of time. Mm-hmm. So I mean, even if we work with a client that is a buyer that ends up buying the very first home that they see, that's not where the relationship ends. That's not where our work ends. That's not where we stop.
Yeah.
Some agents do, which is a whole different part of our business, and there's definitely some bad actors out there when it comes to our business. But I mean, ultimately, the long-term relationship and the value that we provide over 10 plus years to a client is paramount. So.
Totally. I mean, it is very much, at least for us and our company, it's very much a advisor role. And the kind of the weird thing is, like, unlike an attorney might have a similar type of relationship with somebody, but they're building every 6 minutes they spend with you, mm-hmm. versus where the only time we get paid is during a transaction, but that's not the only work provided, right? Like, that's not the only value that's created. So it's like the way that the compensation model, which we're about to talk about, is set up is different, but as long as you're working with a good professional, the relationship isn't, but the compensation model isn't.
Yeah. And as the agency says, luxury is an experience, not a price point.
good sales point there. So the next thing we're going to talk about. Thank you for your horror story there, and I'm sorry you had to experience that. Hopefully, it didn't take you years and years and months to get over that. I know that you're a resilient human, but like that wears on you, man. It really does. And like legitimately, when I went through that with that person, where I was like waking up at like 2:00 in the morning every day, like looking at pulling my phone up to see if I had an email or a text message from this person, because he liked to send me notices like in the middle of the night, yelling at me about stuff or saying like I had to do something by 7:00 in the morning or something like that. So it literally took me months and months, if not like near a half year to a year, to kind of get out of my funk where like I wanted to talk to clients again. Like I was so shell shocked and traumatized, like you said, or like we were talking about, is emotional abuse. Like the emotional abuse, like I didn't want to deal with new clients for a long time. It took me a while to want to do the job again.
And I mean, there are times when you're deep in a deal where you might have to take a phone call at 10 o'clock at night.
Right. Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that could come up that like you have to take a phone call at 10 o'clock at night. But I mean, I was receiving phone calls like that when there was no deal to be had.
Yeah.
And that's not really acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't talk to anyone at 10 o'clock at night. But like,
I was texting you at 10 o'clock at night. You weren't responding. I was like,
you did.
Answer your phone. Answer your phone.
Oh, whatever. You said you got a minute at 10 o'clock, and I didn't see it till this morning because I put my phone on mute.
So next thing we're going to talk about, commensurate with commission discussion, is if you don't know, last August went into place a settlement with NAR, National Association of Realtors, and most of the big brokerages in the country, removing the ability for listing agents to basically negotiate commission directly with the sellers and to advertise and provide commission directly to buyers agents, kind of outside of the view of buyers. And so the idea was buyers weren't really able to negotiate on this. If that was fully transparent to buyers, that buyers agents would probably be paid less, and that commission would be negotiated away quite a bit, if not entirely. So the first study has come out, or the first survey has come out since then. So a couple months ago now. I'm sure we can go back and look at it again, and it'll probably look similar. But that essentially total commission is essentially unchanged.
It's a negligible difference. It's
Yeah.
0.01% change, which is a rounding error in the grand scheme of
So
things.
it was like listing commission went up like 0.05%, which I don't mean 5%. I mean 0.05%. And then it went down about on the buy side, 0.06%.
yeah.
Or no. Yeah,
around there.
So the difference between those two is the total commission in a transaction has gone down about 0.01%, essentially, not even a rounding error. So that would be, I don't know, on a $500,000 house, like $5-ish, something like that. Yeah. So the effect is essentially unchanged, and the study that did it essentially said that this was pretty in line with seasonal changes they have seen the last several years at that same time. So essentially, it was the exact same commission amount paid between parties. If maybe it shifted a little bit between buyers agents, listing agents, the amount paid by consumers was identical. Like the amount going to agents might shift a little bit in terms of who is getting paid in that, but the actual amount that's being paid by consumers is identical.
Yeah.
Is that in line with what you were thinking?
I really didn't expect to see a whole lot of differences.
Yeah.
I in large part because here in Colorado there was already so many of the things put in place that weren't nationwide, and so I do think that maybe there are. I mean, I fully agree that there are some things that came out of this that were a positive for consumers nationwide. It does create more transparency. has it changed how I do my business or any of the conversations that I have? Very, very minuscule. It's a it's overall like basically no difference other than we are just having to have slightly more conversations with agents on the other side of a transaction prior to prior to going under contract. The way that I address things with my sellers is still the same. It's I'm not
preparing
saying,
them for like, here's how much you're probably gonna have to pay, et cetera. Yeah.
Here's the commission that I will be charging for this particular transaction. This is the commission that I believe you should offer to a buyer's agent to bring a buyer in. Here's the discounted commission that will or, the slightly smaller number if I were to find a buyer and bring it in, so that if that were to happen, then so having those full conversations with folks so that they understand like everything up front is honestly no different than what we were having, the conversations we were having prior to this whole settlement. And we've discussed this before. I think I sent you the link to that NPR article. I think it was with Terry Gross, with the lead plaintiff of that case, and just the way that he talked about real estate professionals was really disparaging, and it was pretty showing or telling of his mentality, because he's an attorney and he tried to compare himself and like, I went to school for this amount of time and did this and that and the other, and the barrier of entry to become a real estate agent is so low. It is. The barrier of entry to become a real estate agent is incredibly low. What percent of real estate agents didn't do a deal last year?
Something about 75%.
Yeah. So that's
not that didn't make a living, that didn't do a transaction.
Didn't do a single transaction. So, and I mean, I get it. There's a lot of agents out there that have it for a variety of reasons, but there's a very big difference between a good agent that does this professionally and is fully in tune with the market and can understand and really coach their clients through the process and appropriately price a home and stage a home and market a home, compared to Joe Schmo that is got their real estate license and might do a transaction a decade.
Especially So that person started a real estate company. I've talked about this on a previous episode.
Basically immediately after he got his
trying
$500 million settlement
to address the problem that he created. Or that the settlement created. I wouldn't say he created, but addressing the specific void that would be opened by the NAR settlement. He created a company that like basically overlaid that specifically, that says, hey, you can now use an agent like an Uber driver and just pay per showing, pay per contract, right? Pay like a pay per service.
But then those agents are still negotiating commission,
right? And so then they end up writing commission, and then they negotiate with you, and then you end up paying.
Could potentially pay more money because they're paying for this a la carte, contracts writing and pay per showing. So they're potentially paying more money for every single transaction, and this guy is getting a percentage, a 40% referral fee.
I don't know exactly what that is, but
I don't know exactly either. But big referral fees for every transaction. So it was a bit enlightening and a little frustrating to hear him talk, and I did appreciate the article because Terry Gross definitely fought back on him a little bit, and I appreciated it. But just the disparagement that he had towards real estate agents, and then he turns around and creates his own real estate company to profiteer off of the problem that he created.
It's very much, especially from an attorney standpoint, which is he was like essentially like, well, I can do this myself. And then Terry's point was, I don't know how to do this myself. And I would really, instead of making real estate agents less needed? Like, why not just make real estate agents better? Like,
Yeah.
like instead of trying to make the industry better, you're trying to make the industry like the experience can be so much more varied because you could literally just have a literal door opener. Like, that's kind of the disparaging moniker that people have towards real estate agents, like, you're just a door opener. But like, now you're like literally creating a industry of door openers who are like, that's what, because we know some younger agents that don't do a ton of transactions, don't have a ton of leads, and the way that they kind of make a living is they go and they make $50 to $100 per showing just doing showings, and they're not planning on doing transactions.
But those agents are paid by another agent,
Right?
Not being paid by a consumer that's trying to just see a home and thinking about this process. They're actually currently working with an agent, and they're basically being paid as like a showing assistant almost at that point, which I mean is perfectly fine, because the ultimately the consumer isn't going to absorb that cost at all. But it definitely is interesting to see how little changed.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that really is indicative of how well I think we've done things in Colorado, because there has been, legislation and laws put in place for quite some time here in Colorado to make sure that consumers are rather protected. And it's other states probably benefit more, maybe.
Yeah, well, like a lot of folks. Well, the big one, the buyer's agency piece, was the big one where it sounds like a lot of other states were operating without buyer's agencies, or it was kind of like a more informal scenario. The people who I think that this is probably impacting the most are folks that are doing all, if not most of their deals from lead generation services like Zillow or Homes.com or something like that, where they would just go show houses to strangers and then write contracts, because now it doesn't matter if an agent showed you a property. If you don't have a buyer's agency agreement with them, you can work with anybody else that you want. Versus before,
the procuring cause.
If this agent was the procuring cause and they showed you the house, technically speaking, you needed to, even if you wrote with another agent, that agent that showed you is due a commission or something along those lines, with or without that buyer's agency. And so the listing agent was a little bit more on the hook to try to suss that out, to figure out who showed that house to them. But now you could meet with somebody, go show them 10 houses. You can meet somebody that Zillow sent you, go show them 10 houses, and they decide to go right with their brother, who's an agent, and you that just showed them 10 houses have no recourse on that.
Yeah.
So those are the folks that are probably the most impacted. Now, for me, all that's really different is when I have a client that reaches out to me, instead of going and showing for a day or two and then going and doing a buyer consult, I usually try to make that buyer consult the first thing we do, or maybe like we go show a couple houses and then we do the buyer consult like right after that, so I can explain all these changes and stuff. But besides, like you said, kind of the timing and the cadence of things, I don't think that I've really changed my operation more than adding a 2-minute spiel to my normal buyer's agency agreement.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there definitely have been some consumers that have had questions and brought it up, and I mean, it's a simple conversation and just a clarifying conversation about what changed, what hasn't, which most of it just hasn't changed.
Yeah. I got way more questions prior to the settlement than since the settlement. Prior to the settlement, I had lots of people reach out like, hey, what does this mean? They were terrified this was going to tank real estate price. I don't know why, but a lot of people thought that it was going to. I think there were a bunch of articles written that basically said like this is going to like upend real estate and it's gonna throw prices really low or something like that. But I had a lot of folks that reached out and were asking tons of questions about it. Since that's happened, besides like folks who are in the middle of a transaction who are like, hey, I want to go see some houses. What's going on with this thing? I haven't had anybody ask me any questions about it anymore.
Yeah, it's becoming fewer and fewer. So,
it's normal operation now. We'll see next time we have a market more like 21, 22 that's really busy. I was concerned with the spring market, not from a standpoint of I'm never going to get paid again, but like 21, 22, it was just that's the part of this that was frustrating, is that when the market is busy, we're negotiating our commission all the time anyway. So it's not like this is going to add something new. The difference is with it being I assume that when the market is like 21, 22 again, the stipulation is just going to be your buyer is paying for your commission, because we're probably not going to be able to, in a competitive scenario, when there's 5 offers on the table and a couple of them don't have commission written into it, you're just never going to win a deal if you have the commission written into it. So that was in a crazy market for buyers where they have to go way over asking. We'll just have to find a new order of operation, and it'll kind of be Helen Keller kind of bouncing off walls left and right before we find like how to do that. But it could definitely be I would much rather kind of figure that out on a semi-busy market than like an insane market.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'd say we're in a rather fortunate position right now. I mean, 2024 was very low transaction count, lowest in Colorado in 35 years, and it's so it's definitely a bit of a learning process, but I don't foresee us getting into a market like we were in like 2020, 21, 22 for quite some time again, unless interest rates bottom out, in which case, I mean, that was probably the most difficult time in Denver Metro for first-time home buyers to buy a house, and that would the changes with the compensation model, like if listing agents are not offering any compensation and there are people that are able to afford to pay their buyer's agents compensation without involving the listing side at all, that again is going to make things more difficult for first-time home buyers again, because of course we can always get creative with how that that is paid to the benefit of our buyers, working things in as far as concessions and stuff like that for the benefit of our buyers, but can't do things like that with FHA loans or VA loans, and that makes it further difficult for first-time home buyers. So there are gonna potentially be some consequences that come out of this. That is going to mostly hurt first-time home buyers.
Yeah,
once again.
the folks that probably need an agent the most. This is probably going to be the folks that will be most unable to do that because they have no equity. They have the lowest down payment ability.
Yeah.
Yada, yada. Those are the folks in like 21, 22 that was really hard. It's like if you had 20% down, we had a lot of wiggle room to get you from, as long as you're okay going below 20%, to lower your down payment to 5% and then have that extra 15% be like cash at closing scenario. And if we're just reworking the accounting on deals basically to include our commission in part of that down payment as well, instead of the working into the price of the house, like the actual dollars from a buyer won't change. Like the price of the house might change, and so the house might be technically $10,000 more, and then the commission is coming from that down payment. Like when you write it all down on paper, you would see that like the actual dollars going to and from the buyer and the seller are relatively the same. Where it'll just be in different accounting buckets.
Yeah.
So it'll all kind of work itself out. That'll be fine. But if you have 3 to 5% down, and we don't have that wiggle room to be able to just move that money to like different accounting buckets, that's where it'll become tricky.
Yeah. I am happy to see that, 21, 22 is in our rearview mirror with folks that there was so much money in the marketplace and so many people had an extra $50K on top of their 20% down payment that they could throw towards, the appraisal gaps, which is completely eliminates the possibility for a first-time home buyer to even get their foot in the door.
Yeah.
And so that was tough times for first-time home buyers, and I I love working with those people. I love that education piece of. But first-time home buyers and investors has always been like something I get really excited about. I mean, I love working with everybody, but except for that one person. But I'm very glad to see that we are, even with the higher interest rates right now, there's less competition in the marketplace. So it has enabled a lot of people that weren't able to buy for quite some time to be able to get into a home and start building equity and start building that wealth, that generational wealth that will last them.
Especially if you can get out of your head about interest rates, because we can usually get a seller to buy that interest rate down, or at least temporarily, if not permanently, and get repairs done and all kinds of other things. So if what I'm telling all my buyers is, like, don't think about the interest rate per se, because we're probably in a new normal in terms of interest rates, maybe 0.5% here or there, but like in the 4 years you're going to wait to get that interest rate down to the fours, that house might be $100,000 more expensive at that point in time, and you'll be paying more money even though your interest rate is great now. Like it's buy and wait, don't wait and buy scenario.
Yeah, and our lenders that we work with are getting creative to make things more affordable for people.
And you have a good lender; they're looking out for you too on those refinance times. And stuff.
My go-to lenders are like offering like a free 1.0 buy down. So first year they get a 1% discount on their interest rate. I mean that's kind of a built in with their package so that they can kind of attract people and show their value. And I mean it's. Being able to do 5.75 or 5.5 versus 6.5 for that first year can make a big difference.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you having.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah. Fun times.
All right. Here's the 2025. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Happy New Year.
We'll see you next time here on Dwelling Disasters, the real drama of real estate, Littleton, Colorado.